If someone wrote you a letter filled with life-changing wisdom, guidance, and love, but you never opened it, how much would you be missing out on? That's exactly what happens when we don't read the Bible. It's not just a book, it's God's personal letter to us. But let's be real. The Bible can feel huge and overwhelming. Where do you even start? What do all these books and numbers mean? And how do you actually understand what you're reading? I've struggled with these questions, so don't worry. I've got 5 practical tips to help you start reading the Bible with clarity and ease. Coming up in this video, I'm going to be answering the 3 big questions that every beginner has when they first open the Bible. Number 1, how do you actually start reading it? So, you don't feel lost or overwhelmed. And where should you start? Because flipping to a random page probably isn't the best idea. And what do all these books and chapters and numbers even mean? Right? I'll help you so you can finally make sense of it all. And if any of you felt this already, then hit that thumbs up so I know that you're with me. Okay, stick with me because by the end of this video, you will not only know how to start reading the Bible, you'll actually want to. Cool? Hi. If this is your first time, then welcome to the podcast. At The Supernatural Truth, you get nothing but the truth. Truth with a capital T, backed by real evidence and steps to follow it. I'm your host. My name is Cheryl. I'm an ex-New Ager, and God radically encountered me 2 years ago, and this channel is to teach you what God taught me. All right, let's go. Imagine getting a long, heartfelt text message from someone you love, maybe a best friend, a parent, or even your future spouse. But instead of opening it, you leave it unread for weeks, months, maybe even years. Sounds crazy, right? Why would anyone ignore an important message like that? But that's exactly what happens when we don't read the Bible. It's not just a book. It's God's personal message to you. He's already spoken, already written down everything He wants you to know about Him, about life, about how much He loves you, and what He promises He will do for you. Your purpose here on earth and also about eternity. But if we never open it, we miss out on all of it. That's why today I'm going to give you 5 simple tips to finally start reading and understanding the Bible so you don't just leave God's message unread. Cool? Ready to get into it? Tip number 1, understand the structure of the Bible. So I'm going to start with the large chunks and then we'll chunk down, okay? The Bible is divided into 2 sections, the Old Testament and the New Testament. So the Old Testament is before Jesus. Most of the Old Testament is written in the Hebrew language with a few sections in Aramaic. You don't need to know that, but this is good information. The New Testament is when Jesus arrives and everything after. So it's usually written in the Greek language. Now, each of these testaments, the Old and the New, they're divided into what's called books, okay? Books, these are books. So there are 39 books in the Old Testament and 27 in the New Testament. Now, if you want to know which book is in which testament, just Google it. Or I'll drop a link in the description where you can download like a quick little infographic so you can see which book is in which testament. Now, each of these books is then divided into chapters. Just like you read any other book, it has chapters. And each of these chapters then has each sentence numbered. Now that's unique. That's not in your average book. And each of these sentences are numbered because that's how important they are. And so each sentence is called a verse or a scripture. Just in case you hear these words, don't get confused. Think of it like an address system to help you find specific passages easily. Okay? Let me give you an example. Now, if you see John 14:26, so it's John 14 and a colon 26. Here's what it means. It means it's the book of John, then the chapter number, so you know it's chapter 14, and then the verse number, so you know it's verse 26. So now you know exactly where to look for it. Make sense? Okay, pro tip. Use tabs. I cannot tell you how much this has helped me. When I started, I had no clue which book was where, and when I need to look for something, it's so easy. I just go to this and I just pick up the book. Navigating the Bible has become so much easier, and it taught me all the books there are and where they are. Great. Now, let's move on to the next tip. Tip number 2, where to start reading. If you're new, start with the New Testament. This is where Jesus' life and teachings are found. Best starting point is the Gospel of John because it's clear, it's powerful, and focuses on who Jesus is, followed by the other Gospels, okay? How much do you read per day? I recommend reading 2 chapters a day. Increase it if you feel led. If you feel I want to read 4, go ahead. But I say start with 2. If you read the Bible before, then I'm going to say start with 2 chapters in the Old Testament, 2 chapters in the New Testament. That's exactly what I do. I find that it really helps me because the story builds and it makes sense to me that way. Biggest tip though, that there's no perfect way. Just start. Okay, tip number 3. Choosing the right Bible version without overthinking it. Firstly, let me point out that the original text of the Bible was written in Hebrew, in Greek, and Aramaic, so obviously it needs to be translated to English. I get it. There are so many translations, but don't let that stop you from starting, please. The main reason that we have different translations is because every individual may use the Bible differently depending on the purpose of why they are reading the Bible. Like, for example, some read the Bible to preach, some to study, some to defend their faith, others to read a devotional to understand God. And thus, a strict word-to-word translation of the original Greek and Hebrew would not be very reliable or useful or beneficial to a certain class of readers. Some Bible translations prioritize accuracy over readability, whereas the other translations, they would look at the original languages and not place it word for word, because if they did it in that order, in the original order, it would not make sense to an English language ear. Make sense? Okay, so here are 5 reliable versions to stick with. Write these down, and I'll tell you what they are in another video, but it's not important. It's NKJV, NIV, NRSV, and ESV. I'll have them on the screen so you can write it down. These are easy for you to read as a beginner. I use NIV. It's personally the one that I use. I started reading the Bible only last year, and I find it very useful. Very simple. Now, some translations change key meanings, so just stick with the 5 that I've suggested and you'll be good. Don't overthink it. Tip number 4, how to read for understanding. Now, reading is cool. It's easy. I mean, if you know how to read, you can read. But what's most important is reading for understanding. Now, the Bible is a special book. It gives you insights and revelations or wisdom when you're reading it. I believe this is a gift from the Holy Spirit. So we need to start with prayer. So how to read for understanding? Step number 1, pray. Just a small prayer, guys. Say, please give me wisdom and understanding, God. I'm about to open and read your word. Please make it come alive for me. Explain to me the bits that I don't understand. I want to understand you, and I want to know you and your plan for my life. So simple prayer. Step number 2, use a color coding system to highlight key themes. Pro tip, use Bible highlighters. Yes, there is such a thing, because otherwise the color will bleed onto the next page, since most of the Bibles have very thin pages. This is how I personally mark my Bible, and I'm going to give you a color code because it helps me to get quicker access to texts that I may want to refer back to later. Now, you can develop your own color coding system, or you can use mine. I'll have that linked in the description. So purple is normally what? Attributes of God. Green, for example, is commands or instructions from God, what not to do. Yellow is like prayers, thanksgiving, worship. Blue is for encouragement from God, promises, faith, those kind of things. Pink is for relationships, family, marriage, parenting. Orange is if something inspires me. Brown is just any important sayings. And red is when it comes to sin, spiritual warfare, temptation. If it's useful to you, I will drop my own color code so you can download and use it. Otherwise, just make one that you like. You don't have to come up with so many colors. Okay, step number 3 is have sticky notes handy. If any questions come up, write them on the sticky note and stick them on the page. Why? Because usually when a question comes up, our mind does not allow us to move forward until the question is answered. So when you write the question on a sticky note and stick it there, your brain knows that you'll come back to it later, and so it will allow you to continue reading and move forward. Make sense? Okay, great. So now to make sure that you are reading to understand, here are the 3 steps. Pray before you begin, color code, and stick your questions on a sticky note. All right, if you like this video so far, please subscribe, because I've got tons of great stuff for you on your walk with God. All right, our tip number 5 is get support. So now you know how the overall Bible structure is divided, you know where to start reading, you know which version of the Bible to choose, and you understand what you're reading. So what do you do next? To make sure that you stay consistent in your reading habit and that you also get the support that you need while you're reading, here are a few resources that I recommend. Option number 1 is to join a church or a Bible study group, which is learning with others, because that just makes it easier and more fun. If you don't have one or you can't go to a local church, type Bible study in the comments below and I'll set something up if many of you want it. Option number 2, use the YouVersion Bible app. I personally have used this app for over a year and I just love it. It teaches you one verse a day, just one sentence, okay? With a 2-minute video explaining what it means. And it's taught me a lot and I cannot recommend it more. So please give it a go. I'll link it in the description. It's totally free. Option number 3, join my free online community and let's grow together on this very important journey. Link will be in the description. Now that you know how to start reading the Bible, there's one more thing you need to do. Talk to God. Reading the Bible is how you hear from God, but prayer is how you respond and build a relationship with Him. If you're not sure how to pray, or maybe you've wondered, am I doing it right? Don't worry, I've got you covered. My next video walks you through exactly how to pray, step by step, so you can connect with God like never before. Watch it here now.